Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to Everything Within podcast. I'm your host, Alina Krasnožon. This podcast is all about empowering you to build an extraordinary, fulfilling life and tap into the limitless potential that resides within you. Thank you for tuning in today. What if your strongest yes to yourself begins with a single no to others? In today's episode, we're diving deep into the art and courage of setting boundaries. Boundaries are more than just rules. They are a powerful way to protect your energy, prioritize your well-being, and build a life aligned with what truly matters to you. We'll explore why boundaries are essential for mental and emotional health, not just as limits, but as doorways to personal freedom and fulfillment. I'll be sharing my own journey, from the struggles of people-pleasing to discovering the strength in putting myself first. You will learn how to recognize when your boundaries are being crossed, how to communicate them with confidence, and practical tips for saying no without guilt. By the end of this episode, you will see boundaries not as walls, but as gateways to a more fulfilling, creative, and balanced life. Let's get started. Let me take you back to a small apartment in Eastern Europe, where a little girl shared not just a room, but her entire living space with her family. That girl was me, and I had no concept of what personal space meant. No doors to close, no corner to call my own, no boundaries to protect my inner world. Like many children in post-Soviet Eastern European households, I grew up in an environment where the idea of personal boundaries was as foreign as a distant Western world we glimpsed through occasional movies and magazines. You see, in Eastern European culture, especially during the post-Soviet era, the concept of individual space, both physical and emotional, was almost non-existent. We lived in a world where collective survival meant erasing individual needs. Apartments were shared, lives were intertwined, and privacy was a luxury few could afford or even understand. But it went deeper than just physical space. As a girl, I was taught that many Eastern European women learned from birth to be convenient, to be useful, to serve others, to be quiet. A good girl doesn't say no. A good woman puts others first. They weren't just suggestions. They were the fundamental rules of existence. We were raised to be perpetual caretakers, the silent supporters, the one who would sacrifice everything for husbands, children, for work, for others, while completely forgetting about ourselves. So all these cultural norms and my childhood experiences became so deeply ingrained in my identity and created my whole belief system that I was living by for a very long time. It seemed like it was normal because everybody was living like this. No wonder, as an adult, I started to struggle to make people respect my boundaries in both my personal and professional life. Something felt off in my life. I felt uncomfortable to ask for what I wanted, to say to some of my relatives to just shut up sometimes. And I felt that I will die if I do it. And only recently I started to uncover what was really going on and how all this was holding me back until now. It was shocking. It's not until I moved to France 10 years ago I stepped into what felt like an alternate dimension, where the rules of existence I've known my entire life suddenly didn't apply. I started to witness something that shook the very foundation of my people-pleasing soul. I watched as my French colleagues packed their bags at 5 p.m. sharp, phones silenced, computers shut down, and emails unanswered until the next workday without a hint of apology or guilt. At first, I mistaken this for rudeness or laziness. Here was my conditioning and old programming in action. But slowly, I began to understand this wasn't selfishness. This was self-respect. They had this radical notion that their personal time was sacred, non-negotiable. Watching it made something shift inside of me. I observed French families living a reality that seemed almost heretical to my Eastern European mind. Here, children weren't the sun around which parents orbit desperately. Instead, they were beloved parts of a balanced whole. I watched in amazement as mothers maintained their careers, pursued their passions, and actually took time for themselves without drowning in guilt. It was something I had never witnessed as I was growing up. And then there is the sacred French relationship with peace and quiet. Imagine my astonishment when I first learned about the strict noise regulations. No renovation work on Sundays. period. Specific hours for construction noise, protecting everyone's right to tranquility. I will never forget the night I heard a neighbor boldly shouting from his balcony at some late working construction crews, demanding his right to peace. In my former world, such assertiveness would have been scandalous. Here, it was just normal. The bottom line is that I learned so much while living in a completely different culture about setting boundaries through my own direct experience, and it taught me more than any book or therapy. My journey to setting boundaries wasn't just challenging, it was terrifying. I think I have always had problems with setting boundaries, but it was easier to ignore in the past. But when I started my business, I was the person who would respond to client messages at midnight, who would accept projects at impossible rates, who would say yes to every demand, no matter how unreasonable. I remember one client who would call me at all hours, including weekends, expecting immediate responses. Another who would constantly push for additional work without paying extra, using phrases like, "It's just small changes," or "It won't take long," and I accepted it every single time. Although I was exhausted, overworked, kept complaining and found these demands outrageous. But my lack mindset didn't allow me to say no. I was afraid that I will never be able to find anything better, that I will end up without making any money that month, afraid of losing clients, afraid of being seen as difficult, afraid of not being good enough. This fear was deeply rooted in my cultural programming. Be accommodating, be available, be everything to everyone. Can you see how this attitude keeps you small, consumes all your energy, and how living constantly in lack attracts even more lack in your life? You spend your whole energy on dealing with horrible clients, working extra hours, never giving yourself a break, and that's why you don't have any energy available to rethink your strategy, to find new people with whom you would love working with, and allow space for new opportunities to come. It took me years of finally see it clearly, and start questioning my approach to the way I was doing business and working with clients. In my personal life, I was an architect of my own invisibility. Every yes, every accommodation, every silent nod, when my soul screamed no, there were the bricks I used to build my prison of people-pleasing. Family gatherings became minefields of pointed questions about marriage, children, career choices. Every inquiry felt like a judgment. Every well-meaning suggestion felt like a verdict on my worth. When facing these conversations, my voice would shrink to a whisper, my truth dissolving in a sea of explanations and justifications. And in those rare moments when I dared to express legitimate anger, when I attempted to draw a line in the sand about inappropriate questions, I allowed their guilt-laden responses to wash away my boundaries like waves erasing marks on a beach. The real tragedy wasn't just my silence, it was my beliefs about my own value. I had unconsciously accepted a devastating equation that my worth could be calculated through a series of external metrics: career achievements, academic degrees, relationship status, client roster. Each of these became a digit in the sum of my supposed value. This broken mathematics led me to accept clients who drained my energy and dimmed my light. I allowed people to paste labels on my identity, like stickers on a blank surface, never questioning whether these labels reflected my truth. My self-worth had become a currency I let others control, never realizing it was the mint all along. But here is what I discovered through my journey. When you don't know your own truth, you become a vessel of everyone else's. When you haven't defined your values, every opinion feels like a command. When you haven't imagined your own version of a fulfilled life, you end up living someone else's dream. The real transformation began when I started asking myself the questions no one had ever encouraged me to explore. What if my happiness doesn't fit in the traditional mold? What if success looked different for me? What if my peace matters more to me than others' expectations? I learned that the corporate ladder I was supposed to climb might not lead to my version of heaven, that the traditional markers of success, marriage, children, corner office were optional, not mandatory, that my life could be measured by joy rather than achievements. This wasn't just about setting boundaries, it was about discovering who I was behind the walls of expectations I built around myself. Because here is the truth that changed everything. You cannot protect what you haven't defined. You cannot set boundaries around a self you don't know. Only when you understand your own heart's desires, you can stand firmly in their defense. Only when you recognize your own values can you build fortress walls around them. Only when you can envision your own version of a beautiful life can you clear the path towards it. Your boundaries aren't just lines in the sand. They are the declaration of your self-discovery. They are not walls to keep others out. They are foundations to build your authentic life upon. And every time you honor them, you're not just saying no to others, you're saying yes to your own becoming. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. It's not just about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to yourself. Every time you set a boundary, you're making a declaration of your own self-worth. Let's talk about something we rarely discuss, the energetic bankruptcy of constant people-pleasing. Every yes you give is an energy transaction. When that yes isn't aligned with your truth, you're not just spending energy, you're leaking it. Think of your energy like a bank account. Every misaligned yes is a withdrawal with high interest. Physical energy drains through overcommitment. Emotional energy depletes through resentment. Mental energy scatters through overthinking. Spiritual energy diminishes through disconnection from your truth. Let's dive deeper into why setting boundaries feels so impossibly hard for many of us. Beyond cultural conditioning, there are several psychological factors at play. And the first one is the scarcity mindset. This one is the big one. The voice telling you, if I don't take this client now, I might never get another one. If I don't accept this job, I will never be able to find anything better. The fear that opportunities are limited and you must grab everything. The belief that saying no means closing doors forever. The second factor is trauma responses. How past experiences of rejection and abandonment make us overcompensate as adults. If in your childhood you were emotionally neglected, you have tendency to become a people pleaser. Think about your past experiences of setting boundaries. Maybe when you tried to do it in the past, you faced anger or punishment. And the third factor is identity and self-worth. The false equation of productivity with worthiness. It's especially true in our modern world, and society makes its best to maintain this belief as it's very convenient. We tend to think that the more money we make, the more productive we are, the more worth we have. But all this has nothing to do with your worth as human being. You're worthy just the way you are. You cannot do anything that will make you not worthy. So if you still believe all this, you might need to look a bit deeper into your belief system and question everything. Maybe being helpful became your primary value. It was the case for me. I became very independent as a child very early. I wanted to help my parents all the time and don't be a burden because I saw how they were struggling in their own lives. Maybe you're addicted to external validation and valued it always more than your own desires, needs, and following your passion. This addiction to external validation will keep you small and deeply unhappy if you keep valuing somebody else's opinion always before your own. Don't forget that the only validation you need is your own. Let me share the exact techniques that transformed my ability to set boundaries. The power of the pause. You know that immediate yes that jumps out of your mouth before your brain can catch up? That's what we are going to tackle first. First breath. Acknowledge the request. Second breath. Check in with your body. Third breath. Formulate your response. Start with small no's. Begin with low stakes situations. Practice saying, I will need to check my schedule and get back to you. Don't pressure yourself to respond right away, right here, if you feel like you need more time to think about it. Use no as a complete sentence. It's a complete sentence. Don't forget about that. Create boundaries for your work, especially if you are a business owner. It's very easy to work 24/7 every single week. It's exactly what I did in the past, and it's It's exactly why I burned out every single time. Set specific work hours. Have at least one day per week when you don't work. Turn off notifications after work. Create a dedicated workspace, even if it's just a small corner in your room. Develop clear communication templates. For clients, my working hours are blank. For personal relationships, I need time to blank. For urgent requests, I can help you with this tomorrow and add a specific hour when you can do it. Sustainable boundary practice. Take your journal, yes, right now if you can, and let's do this together. List everything you say yes to in a typical week. Rate each activity's energy impact. +2, energizing, to -2, draining. Circle the 3 most draining activities and think how can you reduce them during your typical working week. Write down one boundary you could set for each. Priority alignment check. Ask yourself these 3 questions before any commitment. Does this align with my top priorities and values for this stage of my life? Will saying yes to this means saying no to something more important? Would I feel resentful if I say yes? Value-based decision making. Create your non-negotiable list. Mine includes no work emails after 6 p.m. Setting clear boundaries with difficult clients. Weekends are for complete disconnection. 2 hours of creating work before any meetings or any other type of work every single day. Monthly solo retreat days. Setting boundaries is challenging, so let's talk about navigating the most common challenges you might face while trying to set the boundaries. When people resist your boundaries, and they will, remember, their reaction is about them, not you. Maintain the boundary with calm repetition. Use broken record technique. Same message, same calm tone. There is no need to scream or get defensive. Let's talk about that gut-wrenching guilt that comes with saying no. This emotional tollkeeper demands payment every time we choose ourselves. It's not just emotional, it's physical. Your body might actually feel physical pain. This is normal. It's your nervous system adapting to a new way of being. Every time when guilt arises, try this reframe. Acknowledge the discomfort. Yes, this guilt feels heavy. Question its source. Whose voice is this really? Choose anyway. I can feel guilty and still honor my needs. Each refusal creates space for possibility. It's simply physics. Nature abhors a vacuum. When you clear energy-draining commitments, creativity floods in, opportunities align, relationships deepen, innovation sparks, joy expands. Here is the beautiful paradox. Clear boundaries create deeper connections. When you set boundaries, you show others how to treat you, and it makes people respect you more. You need to learn to respect yourself first before you can ask somebody else to do it. You also allow others to set their own boundaries as well. So how to develop your inner compass and actually learn to listen to yourself? This might be the most important part of our conversation today. Body wisdom practice. Our body tells us more than our brain can ever tell. But in our modern world, we're so out of touch with our own bodies, we tend to ignore tensions in our bodies and keep going. That's why it's so important to slow down, breathe, and get in touch with your body. When something unpleasant is happening, you tend to avoid feeling your unpleasant emotions or distract yourself. It's important that you let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. Don't repress it, don't judge it, don't label it, but sit with these emotions. Feel them in your body. Your body speaks before your mind catches up. Learn to recognize tension in your shoulders when you're overcommitting, that knot in your stomach when you should say no, the heaviness in your chest when you are ignoring your needs. Find daily practices to get in touch with your body and calm your body and nervous system down. For me, it's yoga and breath work, but feel free to do your own research and find techniques that work for you. Breaking the productivity addiction. Recognize the difference between I should rest and I need to rest. Challenge the voice that says just one more hour. Create rest rituals that feel as important as work deadlines. If you struggle, schedule rest and self-care routines in your schedule so that you can't skip them. Give yourself a break when you feel you need to. The permission practice. Every morning, give yourself permission to change your mind, disappoint others, choose yourself, be imperfect, rest without earning it or feeling guilty about it. My journey from a boundaryless existence to conscious living taught me this fundamental truth. Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to your own magnificent life. Every time you honor your limits, you're not just protecting your energy, you're declaring your worth to the universe. Every boundary you set becomes a brick in the foundation of your future self. Every no is a love letter to your boundless possibilities. Remember, you don't have to earn the right to own your life. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't have to earn the right to your own life. Your boundaries aren't walls. They are wings that will carry you to your highest expression. And to those still struggling, still feeling the weight of guilt with every necessary no, I want you to know this. The world will not fall apart when you start respecting your limits. Instead, something truly magical happens. You begin to fall together into alignment with your true self. Your energy is your sacred birthright. Your peace is your ultimate power, and your boundaries, they will set you free. Start with one precious no that feels like returning home to yourself. Every time you do it, watch as your world transforms. One limit honored, one sacred boundary upheld. This isn't just about setting boundaries, it's about setting yourself free. Free to create, free to connect, free to live your most vibrant, abundant, and unapologetic life. If you would like to dive deeper into this topic by yourself, I have some powerful book recommendations for you. The first book is Setting Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover-Tolop. The second book is Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. The third book is Boundaries by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. The fourth one is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. The book number 5 is When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate. And the last book is The Disease to Please by Henry B. Breaker. Until the next time, bye!